So they are talking about excavating a potential mass grave filled with victims of the Tulsa race massacre that begun nearly a century ago. So they said the Oak Lawn Cemetery in Tulsa, Oklahoma, began on Monday as expected for 3 to 6 days, as originally scheduled to begin in April, but it was postponed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So they are talking about excavating a potential mass grave filled with victims of the Tulsa race massacre that begun nearly a century ago. So they said the Oak Lawn Cemetery in Tulsa, Oklahoma, began on Monday as expected for 3 to 6 days, as originally scheduled to begin in April, but it was postponed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So it said the project results in a geophysical scan of the area, which there were underground anomalies consistent with a mass grave. What say experts believe is that the grave could be filled with victims from the Tulsa race massacre. They said this is a historic day, it's for Tulsa and for our country. They say it should not have taken 99 years for us to do this investigation, but this generation of Tulsans is committed to doing what's right, I say, by our neighbors and following the truth wherever it leads, according to the mayor, G.T. Bynum. Okay. So it said the scan is consistent with the mass graves. A team of some of the foremost researchers in the nation have assembled in Tulsa to assess, as they both the presence and the condition of any human remains at the site in question, according to the mayor. Okay. So I'm going to talk about, like I said, Black Wall Street. Let's talk about the history of it. Tulsa, Oklahoma, the neighborhood of Greenwood, right? So they said the killings itself began in May 31st, 1921. I say in Greenwood section of Tulsa, where an upward, either mobile black community had then established a thriving district of businesses and residents that came to be known as Black Wall Street. See, we couldn't be around white people at that time period whatsoever. So they said, hey, y'all go up to the Indian territory, you go good with them and you build something, stay away from us. So what ended up happening, black people built a thriving community, and black people had their own airport there. They had jewelry stores, lawyer offices, doctors, supermarkets. They had places to do their hair, schools, anything they needed. They were self-sufficient right there. And then the history accounts that the black people living in mansions in that area. And when they came back from World War I, we talk about the Mzungus, and they looked over there and they said, how is it that the N-words are living in mansions and we're living in shacks? And see, that's always been the jealousy with them versus us. They never want to see us do well. They never wanted to do that. OK, so they were just looking for any reason they could to go in and try to destroy everything that black people built with their bare hands. They didn't ask for government programs. They built it all with their bare hands. OK, so Dick Rowland, a 19-year-old shoe shiner, walked to the Drexel building, which had the only toilet downtown available to black people. Rowland stepped in the elevator, and Sarah Page, a white elevator operator, began to scream. While it's still uncertain as precisely what happened in the Drexel building on May 30th, 1921, the most common explanation is that Rowland stepped on Page's foot as he entered the elevator, causing her to scream. According to the Oklahoma Historical Society. Now, the Tulsa Tribune published a news story with the headline, "Nabbed Negro for Attacking Girl in Elevator," and ran an ominous editorial to lynch the Negro tonight. See, the media has always been weaponized against black people. Understand? Always been weaponized against us. That's why now we have a chance to be in the media ourselves and fight back. But at that time period, we couldn't fight back at all. They had all the voice of everything. So it says soon a white mob gathered outside the Tulsa courthouse where Rowland was taken after his arrest. They were confronted by black men, including World War I veterans. Who wanted to protect the young brother, right? A struggle ensued, a shot was fired, then hundreds of white people marched on Greenwood in a murderous rage. So the Mzungus stormed the area and ultimately burned some 35 city blocks to the ground. Well, you know, when black people burn something because of injustice, not because of anything else, but an injustice, you're told, don't be looting, don't be burning anything to the ground. But listen to this. It said planes reportedly flew over the district and dropped kerosene bombs. Okay. So the mob didn't have planes. So not only were the mob was attacking, but literally the city was attacking them as well. Okay. They wanted to destroy everything black people had. As the destruction and killing went on for 2 days until martial law was declared. The official death toll, let's say, is 35, but historians said at least 300 black people were killed. As their black survivors were forced into internment camps and were not able to claim their deceased family members. They say instead the corpses were buried by strangers. It say the dig could provide comfort to families who have been waiting for closure. So see, black folks were in internment camps more than once. If you know about the Devil's Punch Bowl, where Union soldiers put black people in internment camps. So they had internment camps right here in America. They talk about the Japanese internment camps, but black people were in them as well. And at least the Japanese, they got $20,000 reparation, each one of them. We didn't even get nothing. So the Japanese got money before black folks being in internment camps. This is why the judgment of God is upon this nation, because this nation has been wicked and evil to the black man and black woman for hundreds of years. Black people being peaceful, minding their own business, and they want to destroy everything that we try to build. Everything, even today, they want to destroy everything that we try to build. Unless we build their stuff up for them, and we give all our talent and all our energy and all that to their companies and corporations, then we cool. We good black people. But if we try to do things on our own, they're going to make it hard and difficult and try to sabotage you. So it said the ultimate goal, was to connect the victims of that event with their families. Okay, it said the tremendous challenge, that's something they didn't expect to have wrapped up by the end of the year. Okay, it said something that'll take years to do. So understand, when these people talk about looting, they looted Black Wall Street as well. The historical account, the women ran in stealing black women's dresses, stealing black women's jewelry, or just different people who own jewelry stores are stealing, taking dishes, they were just looting. Okay. But they want to tell somebody something today, and they still looting today. With the George Floyd protests, it was mostly them doing the looting. Yeah, they had some brothers and sisters, but come on, I posted videos of them looting all day long on my Instagram. You got Becky and Karen, both of them, running in Target looting. But they don't put that on the evening news. They want to say looting is black people. Like I said, these people have no right to talk about anybody looting. They've been looting since 1492. What are they talking about? Looting. You loot possessions, you loot people, looting all over the place. But this is the history of America, folks. And they don't want to talk about this history. Oh, it's the past. Why you guys are bringing that up? Because you never made it right. You never made it right. Everybody came, look how quick they came down on Nick Cannon for saying something. But look at all the murders that they have done to black people. Look at how they destroyed our things. Look at how they stolen from us. Look at that. But they don't want you to even mention that whatsoever. You're worse for bringing up racism than those who had committed these atrocious acts and still committing these acts. See, George Floyd, that's just a history of what goes on. Nothing has changed. It's just the time period and the technology, but everything's still the same. And that's why America has to change. It can't go back to the old status quo, the America that you wanted pre-corona. America will never be the same. Trust me on that. I promise you, America will never go back to what it was prior to COVID-19. It is a new day, and it needed to happen faster than what has been happening now. But leave me a comment, let us think about the situation with, the Black Wall Street and the mass grave that they're, looking into. But understand, our history in America has been an ugly and bloody one. And it still is. Nothing with Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, nothing has changed. There's more black people that still dying at the hands of racism, white supremacy.